All right. Well, Jim, let's go from Cynthia Plastercaster. That's actually not who we're talking about at all, but let's go from that segment
Yes.
all the way over to this segment.
To
over
Saudi
here.
Arabia.
No, it's
via
not.
Omaha.
Why don't we, let me pick this up. Why don't we do a little From the Files, part 2 of something we talked about last week. Paul Heyman. I have the giant file here from the Wrestling News Archive. This is a compilation of everything that was a part of Pro Wrestling Enterprises, and Paul Heyman, for a few years, was a big part of it.
You said it was the fattest file.
It is gigantic. You know, the other interesting
Just plain
thing,
big.
The other interesting thing here, too, is in a lot of ways, it's a document of what was happening on the indie scene in the Northeast in 84, 85, 86, 87. There's stuff here that Paul Heyman sent in himself, although he would say, like, credit this person.
Yes.
Like when he was working for like Windy City Wrestling. Or even when
that big staff at, what was it, Wrestling Press International?
Wrestling Press International. I just found the actual invitation for the Bam Bam Bigelow debut match. A professionally done invitation from Studio 54. But I have here a letter.
But the problem was when they licked the envelopes to send them out, everybody died.
This is from, and there's not a date on it. Paul Heyman did not date these. But this is from the end of 83. Dear Mr. Keitzer, enclosed please find several photographs and an article pertaining to the recent death of the Grand Wizard. I was a very close personal friend of his for many years, and as a matter of fact, it was he who broke me into the business, hooking me up with Vince McMahon Sr. and Jr. I ran a bulletin for 4 years, Wrestling Time, later renamed The Wrestling Times, and also ran fan clubs for Ivan Putski, Louis Albano, and Freddie Blassie. Besides this, I also ran, at his request, the Wizards fan club for the last 2 years of his life. Ernie himself asked me to run it as a personal favor to him. I recently spoke with a man with whom I believe you are familiar, Frank Amato, who told me that your publication usually doesn't print long obituaries. Thinking that letting a man like the Wizard die without proper tributes, I decided to enclose the aforementioned article. Please look it over and get back to me at your convenience. If necessary, you can call me Colette at 914, and there's a phone number here. I look forward to hearing from you soon. Very truly yours, Paul Heyman. P.S. Proper postage and a large envelope is enclosed in case you cannot use the material. So let's stop there for a second because we're going into now the origin story of Paul Heyman.
Well, yeah, also, it's funny because when he says, Amato said you don't print it, Norman would print most things that if people would write them and send them, he would print them. I mean, it's not like if Bruno Sammartino had died, he wouldn't have printed a big story on him or whatever. But yes, Paul was closer to the Wizard than he was anybody else. And, you know, was kind of felt that he was a disciple of his. But I love the many years thing. Paul was, what is this, 1980? What was that?
The end of 83. End of 83.
Paul's 19. I think it's many years. I met him when I was 3.
Well, the other thing, too, was Paul always had a deep, not necessarily deep, but he didn't always sound like a kid. He sounded like someone older and he knew how to project his voice. So if you got him on the phone and you didn't actually know, you may not know he's a kid. I mean, he's putting on a whole act here about Wrestling Press International and all this.
And he had some gravitas the way he worded things also in letters. But yes, that is true. You know, that was because he was a New York kid, so he loved the New York managers, Albano, Blassie, Wizard, especially Wizard. That was who he, you know, grew up watching, like we all did in our various places.
I have the article here, but here's Norm Keitzer's response, December 2nd, 1983. Dear Paul, I received your article on the Grand Wizard, and thank you so much for sending it and thinking of us. It would be the type of article I might publish, and you indicated that Frank Amato had suggested you send it to me. I don't know if Frankie told you this, but the situation here is that we have gone through quite a reorganization.
He's starting to let him down easy about getting any money whatsoever, right?
And I don't at present have any money in the budget to purchase outside material from. The only outside material we are using in our magazine at this time is that which we get in trade in return for free advertisements and free copies of our publications. And since you didn't indicate that was the basis in which you were submitting this, or what you would want in return, what I'm going to do is hold on to this, making sure you are aware of our situation here, and then, when you can get back to me and tell me either to return the material to you, or we can make some arrangement to use it on that basis if you are interested. Thank you again for thinking of us. Hope to hear from you again soon. Sincerely yours, Norman Keitzer. Like you said, lowering the boom right there. And here's
what we could actually do. We can send you some beans and corn from our garden.
The Grand Wizard passes away at age 57 by Paul Heyman. The Grand Wizard, known the world over as the manager of champions, passed away in his sleep on October 13th. The cause of death was listed as heart failure. Born Erwin J., and then in parentheses Ernie, Roth, on August 30th, 1926 in Canton, Ohio, he attended Brown University, graduating at the top of his class. Getting involved in radio, he worked as a disc jockey all over Ohio and Michigan. One of his fans was the controversial grappler Buddy Rogers, who introduced him to pro wrestling. His first job was as a ring announcer, but he quickly went on to become a blow-by-blow commentator on television. First, let me stop there. I didn't know that. Did Buddy Rogers discover the Grand Wizard? I never knew that.
It would have been... I mean, it's entirely possible. I have not read any biography on him to either confirm or deny it. But Ernie Roth started, again, as not only a DJ, but also he was an announcer and he was a television commentator. And this was the Al Haft era, late 50s. So, it's entirely possible that it was Rogers that may have done a radio spot and said, "Oh, you gotta come over here and meet the boys," or whatever the case. But for several years before he became the first incarnation of a manager, was what the first thing he did was Mr. Clean, right? With the bald head. And
well, let me go back to this. It comes up here.
Well, and it probably will, because this is his life. But yeah, that was the way he started.
In 1957, Ray Stevens, who had been impressed by Ernie's knowledge of the sport, asked him to become his manager. Accepting Stevens' offer, but wanting to protect his private life, he took the name J. Wellington Radcliffe.
That's right. That was the first one.
Once Stevens had moved on, the now successful manager went south under the alias Armstrong K. It was during this time...
And that's when he had the long cigarette holder and he was wearing the capri pants like Laura Petrie on...
That's right.
Fucking Dick Van Dyke.
Like right? Laura Petrie. That's right, yeah.
And the thing is, as I guess everybody knows now, I'm not, saying anything out of school, but Ernie Roth was gay. And at a period when that was frowned on in a variety of places, in and out of wrestling. But he got by with some of these early gimmicks, the Armstrong K's and things of that nature.
Gay and Jewish. I mean, that couldn't have been an easy combination in various places.
There you go.
But let me go back to this. It was during this time that he met Johnny Barend and Magnificent Maurice. The three of them went to Indiana with the manager using the name Mr. Clean, and the tag team won the title in record time. While in Indiana, he was sought out by the Sheik, who was looking for a manager and was aware that Roth was multilingual. The Sheik asked him to handle his career. Accepting the new role, he took on the name Abdullah Farouk and soon rose to national prominence as Sheik won titles from coast to coast. His 8-year tenure with the Sheik came to an end, and Abdullah Farouk reappeared in New York as the Grand Wizard. It's crazy just how many different, I didn't realize how many different names he had just by that point.
Yeah. And the reason why he didn't stay as Abdullah Farouk in New York is because Abdullah Farouk was created specifically to be with the Sheik. And he may have had interaction with some other heels over that 8-year run or whatever, but he was really just known as the Sheik's guy. And the pictures of them together were in all the magazines and etc. They didn't necessarily want an Arab heel manager in New York, but with the turban, they just made it more generic. The Grand Wizard, he had a giant sequined turban,
but he also had those glasses. Like there was something like wizardly about him. I don't know what to say. Like there was like something. It wasn't just like he's an Arab manager. It was there's something, mystical almost about this weird guy. And the other thing is, other than the Klan, did anyone use the term like Grand Wizard? Was that a thing in society beyond the KKK?
Well, yes, because of various the Moose Lodge. I mean, I don't know specifically. There's elks, there's mooses, there's mises, whatever the fuck. There's all these, in the fucking honeymooners, Grand Poobah of the Moose Lodge or whatever. There's some type of Grand Wizard of these organizations, but the Klan pretty much doomed it. I don't know if they do that now, but that was done in the past. They didn't just make that up, I don't think.
After proving himself in the WWF to be an astute manager by handling such notorious rule breakers as Blackjack Mulligan and Beautiful Bobby, he pulled off the managerial coup of 1972 by convincing young Jimmy Valiant to double-cross Chief Jay Strongbow. This touched off a feud between the Indian and the Wizard, which lasted 13 years.
And it felt like every bit of it to the fans in the Northeast.
On December 1st, 1973, the Wizard led Stan Stasiak to the WWF World Heavyweight Championship when the Master of the Heart Punch defeated Pedro Morales in Philadelphia. The reign was short, as Bruno Sammartino defeated Stasiak only 9 days later at Madison Square Garden. For 3.5 years, the Wizard looked for someone to overthrow the living legend. His dream was fulfilled on April 30th, 1977, when superstar Billy Graham defeated Bruno in a controversial match in Baltimore, Maryland. The validity of Graham's claim to the title was questioned because his feet were on the top rope when he pinned Sammartino. The colorful duo was the toast of the East Coast, as Graham tore through all opposition for 10 months, until Bob Backlund won the belt in February 1978. Well, they really did give him, I never thought about the timeline. He gets to New York. Right away, he's managing top people. They give him Stasiak. Albano had Koloff a few years earlier. Blassie was just about to become a manager, I guess.
Yeah, Blassie didn't start till 73 because that's when he had to leave California. He couldn't get licensed after the age of 55.
Since the day the title left his stable, the Wizard brought in an amazing array of talent to the WWF. Although he never saw Backlund defeated, he did lead Pat Patterson, Ken Patera, and the magnificent Morocco to the Intercontinental Heavyweight Championship. At the time of his death, Sergeant Slaughter and the Masked Superstar were both under his management, and no replacement has been named as of yet. Though he was roundly booed and jeered, the Wizard was, without a doubt, the most respected manager in the history of professional wrestling. His wit, eloquence, and showmanship will be remembered fondly by the wrestling community for many years to come. And there's obviously a very personal write-up of the Grand Wizard by Paul Heyman, who, we always...
So Paul does have a sentimental side.
We always talk about Heyman being around the Garden. Albano and Blassie were there, but Wizard really was, for a lot of people, not even just Heyman, Wizard, Ernie Roth was someone who opened doors and got people involved somehow.
Yeah, well, he was, more of a guy that wasn't one of the boys per se, as much as the manager, the announcer, an office type of guy who was apparently level-headed and been around for a while, had experience with a variety of talent. So, he had people's ear because he had been around so long at a high level and communicated with people.
All right, I can't speak to the validity of this.
Uh-oh.
Because I have here a few different things.
Is this another one of those contracts that Paul signed in disappearing ink?
Well, no, I have a picture here, a couple pictures, and let me pull this up here. I have what claims to be a transcript of an interview that Paul Heyman conducted with Richard Belzer, 1985, Wrestling Press International. But again, I just don't know. It wouldn't be like anyone would be surprised if I said Heyman may have made something up.
Could this be like one of those Mike Lano interviews?
Now, there's a picture here of Richard Belzer apparently reading the wrestling news. You could barely see what magazine it is. It's almost like someone snuck a camera in it and got a photo without Richard Belzer knowing about it. But there's a couple of things here.
It was either the wrestling news or porn.
Let me go to this. I have the letter. Dear Mr. Keitzer, enclosed, please find 2 color slides that could be used as cover shots or color supplements, or for whatever purpose you may find them. The first slide shows Hulk Hogan and Mr. T with Richard Belzer on Belzer's cable talk show Hot Properties, which is shown on the Lifetime Network. I'm sure you're aware of the incident that occurred involving Hogan and Belzer. The second slide is an exclusive of Richard Belzer reading the wrestling news. I recently conducted an exclusive interview with Belzer and will be sending you the story and some black and white photos that goes along with these slides tomorrow. I wanted to rush these slides to you in case you can use them. We'll speak to you soon, Paul Heyman. And here's the...
Yeah, I got to hear the interview. Let's see if we can smell the good, strong smell of bullshit.
All right, first question from Paul Heyman. First of all, you did ask Hulk Hogan to put you in a hold. Why would you do such a thing? The answer? Why did I do it? Because I had no idea that he would hurt me. I thought he would just demonstrate the hold in a non-violent way. It's an entertainment show, and I thought it would be fun for him to show it to me and not execute any injuries upon me. I just did it in a very gracious, naive, host-like way. The next question, what happened? He put me in a chin lock, a front chin lock. It's not a sleeper hold. It's a different hold from what I found out. As soon as he put me in the hold, it cut off my oxygen, and I was hurt. I was in severe pain. I couldn't breathe. I passed out. And then, from looking at the footage, I see that after I passed out, he just took his arms away and let me fall, and I hit the back of my head on the studio floor and got 8 stitches in the back of my head. Next question. When you hit the floor, were you out? I was unconscious when I fell, and then this is all in bold, in caps, and underlined. I fainted in his arms, and then he dropped me. So let me stop here for a second.
That is clearly what the attorney has told him to emphasize.
It doesn't seem like, it could be a fake, but it kind of works out so far. It could be something here.
Yeah, it sounds legitimate. And again, if you know something about wrestling, you could concoct that, but it doesn't sound like that he's making anything up.
Your eyes start to open and Hogan helps you up. What's going through your mind? The question from Paul Heyman. Well, at that point, I was in shock. And when I came to, I knew that I couldn't continue. I knew that something was wrong. I didn't know I was bleeding, so I figured we better go to commercial. And then I went backstage and was taken to the hospital. Here's a question. Right before Hulk put you in the hold, he said to Mr. T, and Richard Belzer cuts him off, let me know when you think he's had enough. And then Paul Heyman's question continues. He mentioned squealing. At that point, did you think he was kidding? From Belzer, I'll tell you, I met Hulk before the show and he was very nice to me. He had seen my film and said he was a fan of mine. So I, of course, thought he was kidding. The farthest thing from my mind was that he would hurt me. I wouldn't have been out there if I thought he would hurt me.
I think this is legitimate.
And what do you think today? Asks Paul Heyman of Wrestling Press International. I think he knew what he was doing. And I'm kind of sickened and shocked by that. But by studying the tapes and his remarks before he did it, and his remarks afterwards, and the whole climate around this thing, it appears to me that it wasn't a case of him not knowing his own strength, or of it being an accident. He fully intended to do what he did. Again, bold, underlined in caps. So he hurt you on purpose? The answer? Yeah, I think so. In my opinion, he did. Do you have any idea why he would do this? The answer? I think it's because him and Mr. T got caught up in their macho posturing. You know? They say they don't know their own strength. I think they don't know their own mental strength is what it is. I think there might be something wrong with these guys. Again, bold, underline, and caps. I don't know. I mean, I'm not a psychiatrist or a doctor, but I think these are disturbed people. And they have to visit violence upon to prove that they're a man. Let me stop there for a little bit. What do you think of the quotes here from Belzer?
Well, I'm believing this interview more and more because this actually, when you think about it, he obviously either knew he was going to file suit or was in the process of doing so. And so this is a great defense. This is a firsthand account of everything that you would say in a deposition on the side of a lawsuit. So he was probably giving these interviews everywhere he could.
Yeah, I don't know where else he gave these interviews. How did Heyman get this interview? That's the big question, but let's go back to this.
Well, but think about this. Was this an official interview, or did Paul find him hanging around Studio 54 or
yeah,
the fucking China Club or whatever these goddamn clubs are, and this was bullshit that, they were bullshitting back and forth?
Oh, it says here, interview conducted in a bathroom stall at La Barbat.
There you go.
No, but let me go back to this.
There you go.
The question, Paul Heyman pointing to an article which states, at no time did Hogan or Mr. T offer apologies. Hulk Hogan has offered no apologies? And then Richard Belzer says, he apologized right after on the air. But if you see the tape, I mean, it's, I don't know. I didn't take the apology seriously. Here's Heyman. And in today's paper, Mr. T called you a jerk. Belzer says, well, I'm flattered by that. And then Heyman says, why is that? And Belzer says, well, because someone who has so little intelligence perceives me as a jerk, that I must be doing something to make them think and evoke feelings from them. So I'm not disturbed by him. Once again, bold caps underlined.
That was kind of an unwieldy comeback, but
I'm disturbed that he's a hero to children. That he has an effect on on impressionable people. That's what I'm disturbed by. You see, no one can say anything to hurt me. That's the point. But just that I was hurt physically. That's why I'm so insulted by this. Here's a question. You say you're disturbed that Mr. T is a hero to children. Do you think he's a bad example for children? The answer? Yes, very much so. Because he's a cheerleader for violence. He celebrates violence. He talks about inflicting pain on people. Once again, this is underlined in caps and bold. He wraps himself in crippled children and God, and he thinks that by mentioning those things, he can go out and be uncivilized and beat people up or intimidate people.
Wow.
I think, not only is it wrong, it's not even American to be like that. If he's a hero in this country, we should look at ourselves. It's the wrong kind of hero, in my point of view. So, of course, the follow-up question from Heyman, he's a bad example? Yeah, I think he's a very bad example. Anybody who celebrates violence and who is looked up to by children is a bad example by definition, in my opinion. Question, what was your opinion of wrestling before all this happened? Answer, well, I'll tell you, when I was a kid, I used to go see Dr. Jerry Graham, Ricky Starr, Antonino Rocca, Haystacks Calhoun, all these people.
Jesus, he knew everybody.
And I have very fond memories of wrestling from when I was a kid. Me and my friends used to go to the Knights of Columbus Hall in Bridgeport, Connecticut, when wrestling was on Channel 5. And my mother would say, at least I knew where you were tonight because I saw you in the audience on wrestling. So wrestling was a very wholesome, fun form of entertainment. There were real heroes and real villains then, and it was clearly defined. And the resurgence of wrestling, to me, has kind of a mean-spirited side to it. This incident with John Stossel, and now me? And as far as the controversy over whether it's fake or real, I don't care if it's fake or real. I just care that the guys, some of the guys, in it are so insecure about whether it's fake or real that they have to go out and beat people up because they're working out their own mental insecurities.
Damn.
I mean, if people get enjoyment out of it, that's fine. But when the real violence spills out into the real world, then it's not the wrestling I knew as a kid. There's a different mentality here, and it's very intimidating. And it's not entertaining to me that the threat of violence is in the air. I think that wrestling should be controlled. There should be warnings with it when a kid watches it on TV, that these men are experts at what they do. And I don't think there's enough safeguards around wrestling the way it is now. Because if the people in it are taking it so seriously, and then kids will think it's real. See? The adults know it's a put-on. I know you're not supposed to say that, but the wrestlers know it, and any intelligent person or semi-intelligent person knows that these guys are great athletes.
He's starting to lose me again.
And they know how to throw each other around. And it's predetermined who wins and who doesn't, which is fine. But if children think it's real, and they see people like vice presidential candidate Geraldine Ferraro at the wrestling matches, and Gloria Steinem and Cyndi Lauper, and impressionable people look up to these people, and they'll say, well, I wasn't sure about wrestling, but if they're there, I guess it's okay. Then we have to be careful and qualify it. Because it's contributing to a trend of violence in this country that's not healthy. I really think there should be some controls on wrestling. Let's stop there. What are your thoughts now?
Well, my thought is, I bet Norm Keitzer didn't publish this whole thing in its entirety, did he?
I don't know if this got published. I have to double check that.
Because I don't remember Norm Keitzer ever publishing anything directly admitting that wrestling was a work.
You mentioned John Stossel and the incident with David Schultz on 2020. Stossel is suing Schultz. Are you planning a lawsuit against Hogan?
Uh-huh.
We don't know. My attorneys are talking about that now. So I can't really talk about it. We're definitely considering it. How many stitches did you get? 8. How come they didn't cut your hair off? I didn't let them. I begged the hospital not to. Well, they cut it, but they wanted to shave it, and I said no. Belzer adds to a previously asked question. You see, I think wrestling has lost its innocence.
Either there was some Bolivian marching powder in that bathroom stall, or elsewise Paulie may have embellished some of that. Do you think he rattled that stump speech off top of his head in the bathroom at the bar of the Bats?
There's a letter here. That's what a little weird. It says, what has the public reaction to all this been? And Belzer says, actually, I've been very moved by it. I can read you a typical letter if you want, and then it has the letter printed here. But again, did Heyman, I guess if he had a tape recorder going, he would, Dear Richard, my husband and I are both fans of yours, and until last night, fans of Hulk Hogan and wrestling. We were aware that wrestling was staged, an act, staged strictly for entertainment, and never took that so-called violence seriously. We were outraged at the horrible incident that occurred on 2020. We were so disgusted that we decided to boycott wrestling. About a week after 2020, we decided that one barbarian like David Schultz, I believe that was the wrestler's name, didn't make everyone associated with wrestling a barbarian. We started watching it again, enjoying the ridiculous antics of the wrestlers. We liked Hulk Hogan, WrestleMania, The Rock and Wrestling Connection, Cyndi Lauper, Lou Albano, etc. But after what happened last night, we are never watching wrestling again.
Never!
We are just sick that such a thing could happen. Mr. T was rude to you during the whole show, which was bad enough, and which we tried to excuse as an act. But for you to be injured by Mr. Hogan is just inexcusable. And then Belzer says, Anyway, that's pretty much the tone of every letter I've gotten.
Well, what are they going to do? They're going to write him, yeah, you got what you deserved, you son of a bitch. I wish you'd have broke your fucking neck. I honestly lived through that in real time, as the kids say. And I remember the kerfluffle about the whole thing, and obviously the incident itself, and it was reported on news reports everywhere. And then the resulting lawsuit that did happen and didn't, was it him or Stossel that named a house they bought after their lawsuit that year?
That was
Stossel.
No, it was Belzer. It was a villa in the south of France called Chez Hogan.
There you go. And it's Stossel, the one that said that his lifelong hearing problem cleared up a lot better once that he got his judgment. But I don't remember there being a groundswell of fan sympathy for poor Richard Belzer, that because not a lot of people knew how bad he was hurt, unless you were the wrestling nerd that delved into it. When he got Hogan cranked up on the front face lock, then let him go. Belzer slipped like a wet rag to the floor, cracked his head on the floor, got right back up and pitched, "We'll be right back," because he didn't know where he was at. And turned around, and you could barely see the blood dripping down his jacket at that point. So most people thought it was some stunt that happened. Then the wrestling community focused in on it when it became a thing. And, people heard about it otherwise in the gossip column in the newspaper or whatever. But I don't think they didn't start a charity GoFundMe for Richard Belzer's hospital bills. People weren't trying to, set up sniping locations at Hogan for that. That would come later on in years to come.
Let me go back to we're getting to the end here. Here's a question from Paul Heyman. You must be bitter. The answer? Well, I'm starting to get all my senses back after this. I was in shock for a few days. But the thing that really, frankly, disturbs me, of course I'm angry and upset, and I feel violated. I feel raped. I mean, the guy came on my show, and this is all in caps again and underlined in bold, as a guest, and smacked my fucking head against the floor. So I am pissed off. But I'm more concerned about children looking up to these guys.
Yes.
I mean, that makes me focus on it even more.
I've been focused all night.
The fact that I was injured and these guys are heroes. I mean, that's very unsettling. So my personal jury, is still out as to what to do about that. But I'm concerned about that.
I've been concerned for 3 days now.
Do you have a warning for children? Asked Paul Heyman. Yeah.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, I have a warning for parents, not children. I think it's the obligation of the parents. If they're into wrestling and their kids are into Mr. T and the Hulk and all that stuff, then I guess it's up to the parents. Because obviously, the wrestling community is not taking the responsibility. So it's up to the parents to really set kids straight. It's like the Three Stooges. It's cartoon violence. In other words, it's not real, and the children should be told to be very careful and not emulate these guys. It's weird how, his focus is like this. It's not even about him. He's kind of making it look at the bird over here. Look over here. It's not about this. It's about the children. Richard Belzer.
Well, also, I think the bird of paradise has flown up his nose.
But even more so than that, it's the attitude of Mr. T and the Hulk about hurting people and inflicting pain, and the way they openly talk about it and advocate it. That, to me, is sickening. Mr. T says I like to hurt people. I mean, who likes to hurt people? Psychopaths like to hurt people. It's okay if they're talking about wrestling in general, but it's another idea saying you're going around the streets and beating people up.
Mr. T was noted for that in those days. One night he's on network television on the A-Team. The next day he's out in the street beating people up.
And that everyone's a wimp if they don't weigh 300 pounds. I mean, what is that? That's really mindless thug behavior. So I don't know. It's sickening. I never was for the glorification of violence, Now it's being endorsed by celebrities, which makes it even scarier. I think these people should wake up. Celebrities that are kissing wrestlers' asses. It's not good. Anyway, what else?
What else?
Is there anything you'd like to add? I don't know. Just that this is a trend in our country. That America better wake up. Control wrestling. And put it in its place. And make sure the children are protected from the indiscriminate use of violence outside the ring.
The children!
I mean, I think that if wrestling has any inner kind of intelligence, they should get their act together and organize and not be controlled by one personality. But they should have a board and have insurance for the wrestlers and protect the public against this.
Good Lord.
He's all over the place. It seems like it's a trend that all of a sudden exploded on the scene. And people are very impressionable, and they see celebrities involved in it. You know, I think wrestling is a chance to really clean up its act and be safe and be a helpful form of entertainment. But it seems they are going in another direction, and it's scary to me, frankly. Richard, thank you very much. Okay, thank you. And then it says here, after the interview,
that'll be $100 for that last 8 ball.
After the interview, Richard requested that an unofficial poll be taken as to whether or not Hulk Hogan was at fault and what people really feel about this incident and the situation that has arisen with Stossel and now Belzer's own harrowing experience. Please send all comments to the Wrestling Press International, Scarsdale, New York. Interview and comments quotes copyright 1985 by Paul Heyman and the Wrestling Press International. Interview conducted in the Lifetime Cable Studios, New York City. So there we go.
I thought it was in a bathroom at a bar.
There we go. Paul Heyman, enterprise. I mean, that's the thing, I guess, when you look back at all the early stuff with Heyman and everything now, he's an enterprising guy. He's a bullshitter, but he uses his bullshit to get in the door and, you know, eventually he had his own thing, but just always networking, always presenting, always performing. And it got him here, so I mean, obviously he must be happy with how it worked out, but these early years are pretty interesting.
And that transcript validates what I've always thought about the front face lock incident. Because remember, I've always said when Hogan, I believe Hogan cranked up on it to let Richard Belzer know a little, you know, hey, type of thing. But it was 3 seconds at most. And then Belzer flopped like a goddamn circus seal. The only way that a hold like that can put you out that instantly is if your heart's beating 1,000,000 miles an hour. And I have a feeling Richard Belzer's heart spent a lot of time at that time period of the 80s beating 100 million miles an hour. That, you know, kind of gives me more evidence.
Well, there it is. Do you think it's a real interview?
Would you talk to some 20-year-old fucking wrestling press numbnuts for that long if you weren't just having a talkative day?
And again, the photo I have of Richard Belzer reading the wrestling news, if we're going to assume that Paul Heyman took that photo there that day, again, how do you get in? If this guy's talking to the Times, the Post, the Daily News, Newsday, all of a sudden the wrestling news?
He said it was conducted at the Lifetime cable station. It was somewhere or another. Paulie got in there and convinced him that he was somebody to do with something and got an interview with him. That's just while he's waiting to shoot some kind of cable show.
Well, there it is. From the files, Paul Heyman, I guess part 2 of the Paul Heyman files.
I think next week we need to read the Rockford files.
What if instead of, hypothetically, Bolivian marching powder,
yes,
Richard Belzer before the show, or maybe after the show when he was really feeling it, decided to kick back and enjoy a blueberry breeze. Get on a completely different wavelength, if you understand what I'm saying, from our friends at Cornbread Hemp.
Well, in that case, if that had happened, then Richard Belzer and Hulk Hogan would have still been best friends. They'd be changing Christmas cards every year, and they'd be flying off to South Sea Islands together for vacations, because there would have been no violence, Brian. The violence would have been calmed down and curbed, because, folks, if you're looking for a better way to socialize and sip, then you've got to try Cornbread Hemp's brand new THC seltzers, because they're your ticket to hangouts without the hangover. Because there's no alcohol, it's just pure, clean THC. Because relaxation shouldn't come with consequences. And there's consequences. Let's say that you're sitting out in the backyard this summer and you're hanging out with your friends and you drink 4 beers, and somebody's going to say, well, hey, Cletus, if you climbed up on the roof and jumped off onto that umbrella, I bet you could pole vault all the way to Doris's house. And you're going to do it. And then you're going to fracture yourself and you're going to be paralyzed. You're going to be in a hospital in traction and an iron lung. But if you were to drink 4 blueberry breezes from Cornbread Hemp, you not only wouldn't be able to get up on that roof, but you wouldn't even remember where you put the ladder.
Let's not say that.
So you would be just fine and you would be free from any kind of injuries.
We agree with that. You will be just fine. And of course, consume what they suggest. Don't go buck wild, but enjoy it.
Well, no, that's not one of the flavors. Buck Wild didn't make it out of the marketing fucking test. They went with Blueberry Breeze, Peach Iced Tea, Raspberry Limeade, and Salted Watermelon. The Buck Wild didn't make it. But it's incredible flavors and no alcohol, no guilt, no regrets. You drink a couple of these, you commit any heinous act, you will not regret.
No, you can't. What the hell are you saying there? No, you can't create any hate. No. Don't commit or create.
Don't commit or create any guilt or regrets. That's what it says. It said no guilt. No. Well, you're not going to feel bad because you got drunk and messed up somebody's wedding or something because you were falling all over yourself and then you put your hand in the cake when you leaned on the table by mistake. You're not going to do that. You're just going to be sleeping over in the corner after you've, idly had impure thoughts about the bride all to yourself, alone in the corner.
You will be there enjoying the day just as you normally would, except you'll be having that little blueberry breeze kick or whatever flavor you enjoy, Jim.
You'll be enjoying it even more than you would normally enjoy it, except if you enjoy it. And only 30 calories, 5 grams of sugar. So you're not going to get fat. You're just going to get buzzy. You're not going to be couch locked or paranoid because each can only has 5 milligrams of THC. And everybody knows that the standards now with the USDA, you have to have 32 milligrams of THC before you grow into the couch like part of the fabric. Folks, I'm telling you right now, the Cornbread Hemp seltzers are perfect for unwinding, kicking back, kicking in the front also. Drink 3 or 4 of these, you'll kick a son of a bitch in the balls if he gets in your way. But you'll enjoy the moment without alcohol or a hangover. And again, perfect for spring and summer. It's refreshing, relaxing. You can have a new way to have a great time with friends. Now get the goddamn friends and you'll have something. Seltzers with friends. It's like, it's social. Folks, right now, you can save 30% off of your first order and free shipping on orders over $75, of which you've already saved 30% on. If you head over to Cornbread Hemp, if you can spell corn and bread and hemp, put all those things together, cornbreadhemp.com/JCE, 30% off your first order and free shipping on orders over $75. Get just, the thing to do in the summertime, Brian, get one of the kiddie pools and fill it up with blueberry breezes. And then just dive in head first and with your mouth open. And boy, you'll be sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows, waterfalls. Just one of the small kids' pools, though. You don't have to go too far.
Not advisable, but what is advisable is to take up this great deal.
Yes.
From our good friends at Cornbread Hemp in Louisville. Jim, one more time, how can the listeners check out these fine seltzers from Cornbread Hemp?
And all the other fine products they have, the gummies, and they also have hemp if you're wanting to make ropes to climb out of towers. Cornbreadhemp.com. I just threw that in there for you. Cornbreadhemp.com/JCE, 30% off your first order, free shipping on orders over $75, and raw materials to make ropes with which to escape and climb mountains.
Once again, our friends, Cornbread Hemp.